Welcome to the Mama Needs a Moment podcast. We're your hosts, Chrissy and Cindy, co-founders of HER Health Collective, and moms who totally get the chaos of juggling it all.
But here's the thing, your well-being matters. That's why we're on a mission to change the way moms take care of themselves.
We bring you quick 10 to 15 minute bite-sized episodes packed with expert advice on women's health, parenting, and self-care, plus real-life tips you can use right now.
So take a deep breath, grab your lukewarm cup of coffee, and let's make these moments count.
We are so excited to welcome several of our HER Expert providers to today's conversation. You can learn more about each of the experts featured in this episode, as well as many other trusted professionals through our free provider directory linked in the show notes. This episode is part of our Expert Roundtable series, where we gather professionals from a range of fields to talk about the topics that matter to moms the most. We host 4 of these discussions each year, and this is the 4th and final roundtable in our 2025 series. We will begin our 2026 roundtable series early in the new year. Our roundtables are a cornerstone of HER Plus Health Collective. They bring together diverse perspectives, foster collaboration across disciplines, and help us support moms with more connected, well-rounded care, while also giving our experts a chance to learn from one another. Today, we are diving into the theme, holistic solutions for common mom ailments, from fatigue and burnout to digestive issues and hormonal changes. So many of the challenges moms face are deeply interconnected. Our experts are here to help us look beyond quick fixes and explore how nutrition, movement, mental health, and medical care can work together to support whole body wellness. Before we begin, we'll invite each of our experts to briefly introduce themselves and share their area of focus. We're going to go ahead and get started in no particular order. Carrie, if you'll go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name is Carrie Lett. Sorry, my voice is going to go in and out. I've been losing it all day. I hope it stays with us. But I am a registered dietitian. I specialize in pediatric and maternal nutrition, and I'm also a certified lactation counselor as well.
Thank you so much for being here, Carrie. Next, we have Dr. Lindsay Muma.
Hi, I'm Lindsay. I am a chiropractor, and I am also a certified DNS practitioner, and my focus is truly on supporting core health throughout the life. So that ends up being a lot of new moms and pregnant women, as well as babies, because that's the time period in our lives when our cores go through the most amount of change. I'm also an author, and I've written the book, Your Pelvic Floor Sucks, which is a little tongue-in-cheek, but is intended to help people realize that dealing with pelvic floor dysfunction is not a normal thing, and that we can do more than just suck the pelvic floor up and in for improving health there.
Wonderful. Thank you. We're so happy to have you here. Next, we have Kate.
I'm Kate Lehman. I am a certified nurse midwife, mom to 2 tween daughters, and I've been in the area since 2009. I have worked in a variety of settings, including home, birth center, and hospitals. Recently, I founded a practice, Mother Love Wellness, dedicated to closing the gap in postpartum and perimenopausal care. I'm passionate about helping women understand their bodies, their hormones, because I know an educated woman is going to make better choices. And I am offering virtual care and just recently started renting space at an amazing lactation clinic, if you haven't heard of it, Teaching Babies to Nurse on Highway 54 in Durham. So I'm excited to be here and to meet all of you. Thanks so much.
Thanks for being here, Kate. Next up, we have Dr. DeVries.
Hi there, Abby DeVries. I'm a family physician and a certified menopause practitioner, mom of 3 teenagers, and I opened recently a direct primary care practice in Durham over in Sutton Station, focused on women in midlife, ages 40 to 60. So I'm doing membership-based primary care as well as individual menopause-focused or perimenopause-focused visits for folks who have a primary they like but just want to get a little bit of extra help on the menopause transition. So thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. And last but certainly not least, Nikki, can you go ahead and introduce yourself for us?
Yes. Hi, I'm Nikki Fowler. I am a family nurse practitioner at Essential Health in Raleigh. We are a direct primary care, functional medicine based clinic. We see all ages, but definitely have a special heart and passion for women's health. So excited to be with you guys and on this panel.
Oftentimes, what happens when we reach out for help, we're directed as moms, as women, to start reframing things and add more self-care, have some self-compassion, do more self-advocacy. And it would be really important to talk about this. This is a general question out to all of the experts that we're speaking with right now. What does it actually look like in practice for moms who already feel stretched thin and then they're being prescribed these self things, self-advocacy, self-help, what does it look like? How do you have tips on how we can implement this in a constructive way?
I will quickly speak to this, but I briefly mentioned it before. I actually think before we do anything, we need to just figure out our own boundaries. Because if you're like, hey, I need some help, and someone's offer to you is help yourself, thanks a lot. That's really helpful for nothing at all. But in recognizing our own boundaries, one of the exercises that I put in my postpartum rehabilitation course, and I've just had such incredible varied feedback of what this exercise has done for people. It's a whole body touch where you literally just like place your hands on each part of your body and just give it like a little kind of almost hug. And it's an exercise in physical boundaries, like where you realize these are my edges and this is where my physical body stops. Now we do have many more energetic things happening, but this is where my physical body stops. And now I can actually find my own boundaries. And just that as like a daily exercise, like before you get in the shower, you're naked, or when you're in the shower, you just like touch the whole of your body and you find, where are my boundaries? Okay, so that means that this is my physical self and I have to take care of this physical self. And that actually is like an act of self-love and self-care and proprioceptive rich feedback that you're giving to your body. Like it's such a gift. But in doing so, we then realize, okay, this is who my physical body is. And therefore I can then decide what feels good to me and how I can then, like Nikki was saying, pour from a filled cup. But if we don't know what's helpful to us because we don't really know ourselves that well, then it's hard to figure out what is going to be helpful. Is it helpful for you to sit in a bath? Well, no, not if you don't love water. Is it helpful for you to go for a walk? Well, no, not if you have hip pain, right? But like if you start to know yourself a little bit, then you can kind of from there have a starting point of what might be helpful. Like, oh, I like when I place my hands over my heart, I feel so sad. And therefore I know now that I need something to help support my heart health. And maybe that's herbs, and maybe that's a best friend call, and maybe that's time in the sunshine, or I need to go to the freaking beach, like whatever that is. But you can actually just kind of start to learn yourself a little bit on a physical level. And that can help fill in the gaps of where you might find best help. I do think it sucks when people offer you that you should help yourself, because it takes a lot for women to reach out and ask for help. But I think that if she can start from a place of knowing herself, then she might know where she needs help. And then she can direct her question of where she needs help from. I need a phone call with my best girlfriend, who's one of those people who will listen to me and not give me advice unnecessarily, and she can just kind of maybe start from a place of a little bit more self-knowing.
I love all of that so much. There's so much to unpack there. Just the idea itself of touching all of your boundaries physically, and also just recognizing when someone's advice to you maybe doesn't land and should just be pushed to the side and recognized for what it is. So I appreciate all of that, Dr. Muma. I want to turn and kind of touch on something that we've already alluded to and talked about a bit, but I think it's so important. Motherhood can be incredibly isolating. It can really rock you to your core, how you can be surrounded by children all day or in a room full of people and still feel so completely and utterly alone. And we're not meant to do motherhood alone. We never were. It was meant to be a village and raising the children and raising the mother, holding the mother. Healing physically and emotionally often starts when we let others in. And I firmly believe that we heal in community, not in isolation. We need the power of the collective. We need to share our stories. We need to heal with one another. How can moms begin to rebuild that sense of support when it feels like everyone else is so busy or struggling with something in their lives themselves? I see this all the time in our HER community where a mom is really in a dark space, but in her mind, so is everyone else, and she can't burden others. This is open to anyone. I would love to hear anybody's thoughts on this. How do we navigate that? This episode is brought to you by HER Circle, the ultimate community for moms looking for real connections, meaningful experiences, and expert support.
From mom's night out and family adventures to book club, volunteer opportunities, and expert workshops, HER Circle is where moms come together to learn, laugh, and lift each other up.
Spots are limited, so join the waitlist at herhealthcollective.com/membership and be the first to know when doors open.
Chrissy, I think one thing that can be really helpful is, and you guys do such a great job in cultivating this community, but just really being open with one another. This might not be a direct answer to the question, but I think, as women, sometimes we can be very guarded and, don't want to seem weak, and I don't want to seem like I can't handle this. And again, yes, like don't want to burden them because I know they have X, Y, and Z going on. But sometimes when we open ourselves up and we actually share, we can find that other person is in that space as well, or has been in that space, or can relate in some sense. And, it can really be a beneficial, fruitful thing for both parties. So I think just all that to say, don't all, like the mindset of burdening someone else, like I think as women, we have to get away from that somewhat, because we never know what our sharing and what our burdens, how that could be fruitful for someone else, or what, what experiences they may have that they could, pour and feed into us. And I've just personally found that in numerous situations, and I think that's just a very simple, helpful tip.
It is. I'm so glad you said that. I think there's so much power in sharing our story and letting someone just see the layers of what our experience is. There's a lot of power there.
I think relationships have seasons too. And I experienced this myself when I first had my kids. Most of my peers were about 10 years ahead of me. And it was really hard for me to relate to them because they were just in such a different phase of life. And so it really took me reaching out, and it's hard to make new friends as an adult sometimes. You really have to put yourself out there. So I just did everything I could think of, like the Fit Mom classes, the library, lap sit story time. And those women that I connected with through those channels, to this day, like they are in my life. And you have to kind of be okay with that, with letting go of certain aspects of relationships, so that maybe you're open to building new relationships where you're at in that stage of life. Those people, they'll always be there for you, but having the courage, the bravery to just get out there again as an adult, it's really important, and it makes a difference.
Yeah. And that's such a good choice of words there too. It is bravery. It requires bravery to walk into a room full of strangers and say, "Hi, my name is." So thank you for that, both Nikki and Kate. And Dr. Muma, I'd love to turn to you. You often talk about stress-free support for both moms and babies. And I love that idea because I know when I walk into a doctor's office, especially, I usually feel very stressed, very anxious, to the point where for a while I did not take my daughter to the pediatrician. That fell to Noah because he handled it much better than I did. So I would love to know, how can we create environments, both at home, in our relationships and friendships, and at appointments with providers, that reduce that pressure and help us foster connection instead?
I feel like after this podcast, I'm just going to be known as like the boundaries lady. Um, but
Nothing wrong with that.
kind of important. I've had because I teach chiropractors and chiropractic students, I end up getting a lot of shadows in my office, and they'll comment to me on how like reasonable it is in my office when I have a whole bunch of young kids here. And the reason why is because I have just the boundaries of what is acceptable in my office and what isn't. And I think that that's a really hard thing for parents to navigate in an office setting, right? Like most office settings where you take your kids, even if the pediatrician's office, it's like not set up for kids to be there. Like you have the play area, but then like in the actual treatment room, this is no longer a kid-friendly environment. And so there are plenty of things in my treatment room that aren't specifically kid-friendly. So I start the visit off by saying what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And if a provider doesn't do that, then I think as a parent, it's really a great idea to ask, like, what's okay for my kid to get into here? Because if you have a toddler, they're gonna get into something, right? And so you need to know, where is this acceptable? Where is this not acceptable? And I think just starting out with, where are the boundaries here? I see where the door is. Can you explain to me what the other boundaries of this room are? That can be really, really helpful as a parent. And the same thing at home, of that, like having an actual area that is a yes space for your children, and then giving yourself a yes space where like anything goes in this space. I think that was so powerful for me as a parent, and knowing like this room, there's actually nothing that could happen in this room that I would be worried about. Like there's no shelf that can get knocked off the wall, and there's no sharp corners. And if you accidentally lock the door and lock yourself in there, I know you're going to be okay. And I think that we can create those type of scenarios everywhere that we go. We're about to go into the grocery store. What that means is blah, blah, blah. And that might be like, that might mean you're going to stay in the cart the whole time, or that might mean you need to hold my hand the whole time, or that might mean it's okay for you to be on the cart but touching it, whatever you feel comfortable with as a parent. But I think setting up those, like any type of encounter, whether that's, like I said, a trip to the grocery store, or to the pediatrician, or to the chiropractor, or you're going to a play date, or you're going over to grandma's house, like the rules at grandma's house are different than they are at our house. And kind of setting yourself and your kids up for what will this look like just takes a lot of the stress off, because then you're more proactive and less reactive. And I think the more proactive that we can be just across the board, it tends to bring stress levels down, because now the expectation isn't this grandiose thing that we haven't really considered. It's, this is what we expect might happen. So then if we go off of expectation, there's only like a small part of that we haven't already covered. I don't know if that answers your question, but I guess I'm just the boundaries lady, and this is where we're going now.
No, that was amazing. And it was fantastic to hear examples of boundaries, because people can say boundaries all the time. And you're like, I don't even know how to set boundaries. What does a boundary look like? What do they even mean by that?
If I can actually touch on that really quick, the simplest way of describing boundaries that I use with people is that you're not putting walls up, you're letting people know where the doors are. And so this isn't like, you can't get to me. This is where you can get to me. And I think that that's really helpful. So like, we let our kids stand on our kitchen table when there's not food on it. So if there's food on the table, you can't stand on it. If there's not food on it, then you can stand on it. And that was like a boundary, right? That's an example of a silly boundary. But when they would like climb over the table, and someone else would be in the house, and they'd be like, oh, we don't step on the table, I would tell them with clarity, you may stand on the table if there's no food on the table. And like, we're a no shoe household, so it's just their bare feet. But I think that when you realize that this isn't just about putting up walls, it's about letting people know, where's the entry point, where's the exit point, like where is there wiggle room here? That's really what boundary setting is about, to me anyway.
So wonderful. And it's also important to remember that, as we've touched on previously about that, the judgment comparison, your boundaries are going to be different from other people's boundaries, and you can't judge others for theirs, for what goes on in their house. And that's part of the R in her, it's respecting everyone's where they're coming from, because everyone has a different story, a different background that's going on. So thank you so much, Dr. Moomin. That was fantastic. And we've touched on so many wonderful points throughout our discussion today. And now it's important to talk about the long-term wellness, thriving through every season of motherhood. It's not a linear process. Health is not linear. It's all over the place. You have good seasons, bad seasons, in between seasons, and it's all about growth. We are all growing. Motherhood may start off with sleepless nights, but throughout our wellness journey, it continues through every chapter, from hormones to bone health to emotional balance. You're going to get hit with it all. Let's talk about how to care for ourselves through the long term. Dr. Abby, I'm going to direct this to you. You mentioned perimenopause previously, and it's something that can sneak up on us. You said it can happen as early as in your mid-30s. Another example of this is insulin resistance that can sneak up on us. What should moms in their 30s and 40s be doing now? And kind of touch on, those of us that are already past the 40-ish timeframe. Yeah. What can they be doing now to protect their long-term health?
Yeah. So perimenopause and insulin resistance do go together. So perimenopause, like I mentioned, it can start very early. And there's fortunately kind of a revolution happening, if you haven't been on Instagram recently, around in traditional healthcare on the importance of potentially considering hormone replacement therapy. So there are more and more providers in the area that will talk through the options with you, take your concerns seriously. There are over 40 symptoms that have been identified as linked to perimenopause. So and kind of the classic is kind of just not feeling like yourself. And so I would really encourage folks, if they're feeling that they haven't gotten the answers from their primary care provider, their OBGYN, that they keep looking for answers. And there are lots of ways to access menopause providers. There's 3 of us on the call. And then also there's the menopause.org website where you can find a provider. There are some pretty respected online resources as well. And so I would say just keep looking for somebody to kind of answer your questions. At the same time, because there's so many symptoms, it could be something else. And so you also want to make sure that someone doesn't just jump to the perimenopause, but looks at what else could be going on. So I think, being aware of your body, of how it's changing, and fighting to be heard and evaluated in the healthcare system is really important. And then on the insulin resistance front, so November is actually National Diabetes Month, and a third of Americans have prediabetes, but 80% of us are unaware of the diagnosis. And again, women are susceptible to this if they have had insulin resistance during pregnancy, like gestational diabetes. And as we move into perimenopause, because the estrogen in particular helps us to regulate our insulin resistance. And so as we become more resistant to insulin, our blood sugar creeps up into the prediabetes range and then the diabetes range. And again, that happens also with age. So we have kind of confounding factors that are all leading us to become more insulin resistant, including genetics, lifestyle, excess weight that we might be carrying around, and then the diet has a big contribution to this as well. So for all these things, in addition to seeking support for hormone replacement, if that's something that you want to pursue, is the healthy lifestyle. And the American Heart Association has something called Life's Essential 8, which I think is helpful. But I wanted to just highlight 3 particular, and we've, I think, talked about all of these in different contexts so far today. But the first is really staying active and aiming for 7,000 steps or more a day. And incorporating resistance training in helps both with insulin resistance and then with bone health, that we'll talk about in a minute. And then on the diet front, also making sure that you're limiting added sugars and fried foods and really prioritizing fiber and lean protein. Again, that helps with the insulin resistance and management of weight. And then sleep as well. And we talked a little bit about sleep earlier, but really prioritizing sleep over other activities if you find that you can't get enough sleep, because if your sleep is off, then you're not as likely to kind of pick healthy foods, to get the exercise you need. So managing sleep through stress management, avoidance of too much caffeine or alcohol, and then really, thinking about the boundaries. So if you need to put boundaries in place so that you can actually get to bed and get to sleep, I think that's a big priority. And you kind of have to think about what's my priority in this phase of life right now. My friend used to talk about the rice and salt years with the early childhood years, and you can't do it all. But sleep is one of those things that I would not sacrifice in this phase or any phase. So.
Dr. Abby, while I have your attention right now, can you talk a little bit about a few simple ways we can start strengthening our bones? Because that's also something that starts to deplete as we get older.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is something that, when I was younger, I don't think I paid as much attention to. And so I hope that folks listening to this will think about this. And it's not, something that you can see on the outside. And so it gets forgotten. But we have peak bone mass in our 30s. And from then on, it gets harder to build bone. And unless you're really being intentional, you can actually start to lose it. And by the time you get to be about 50, the rate of osteopenia, or sort of low bone mass, which is not frank osteoporosis yet, is quite high, because we lose about 20% of our bone mass in perimenopause. So before we even know that we're transitioning into menopause, we start to really rapidly lose bone. So it is very important. And then you think about if you have, again, I mentioned earlier that the postpartum state is a low estrogen state. People who've been athletes or have other reasons why they may not have been ovulating could already have, developed risk of osteoporosis. So fortunately, these line up really well with the things I talked about around metabolic health. And so healthy lifestyle is healthy lifestyle. So on the diet front, making sure that you're getting enough protein, calcium, and vitamin D. Supplementing, I think, as Dr. Mima mentioned, I think is almost essential, especially for the vitamin D. And then the regular physical activity, including resistance training. And so Pilates and yoga are great for lots of reasons, but adding weights in becomes essential to maintain bone health and muscular health, which also contributes to metabolic health. And you want to be progressively loading. So you want to be adding additional weight as you add on. And this is something I've decided to prioritize this in my exercise routine and took other things out, because you have to be stressing the bone and the muscle to build more. Hormone replacement therapy, I'm a huge fan. I think there's lots of data about the long-term benefits of hormone replacement therapy, particularly estrogen for bone health. Testosterone potentially as well. We don't have a lot of studies, but that may also help. Smoking and alcohol both contribute to bone loss. So certainly quitting smoking, limiting alcohol. And then the last thing I'll mention is considering getting baseline bone densities testing done. Insurance doesn't typically cover it until you're 65, but it's quite inexpensive. You can get it done at facilities in the Triangle for around $50 to know where you're starting from, especially if you have a history of celiac disease, which is a really underrecognized cause of low bone mass. So just knowing, how much you need to prioritize this, I think can be very helpful. So, a healthy lifestyle helps in all aspects. And if you're following these things so that you feel well now, it'll hopefully protect your bones in the future as well.
Oh, that's so much fantastic information. And I'm going to actually go to Nikki now, because I wanted to ask you that Dr. Abby just offered so many wonderful pointers on health and how to keep track of your health and ways to work through perimenopause and avoid insulin resistance. And that is actually about focusing on our individualized care. And when knowing how to treat ourselves and advocating for ourselves, it can be very empowering. What are a few ways moms can start personalizing their wellness routines without feeling overwhelmed by all the shoulds? So Dr. Abby had talked about, weightlifting and increasing the amount that you're lifting. It's hard because you get so many mixed messages. So I would just love for you to talk about how to avoid being overwhelmed by the shoulds and focus on the most important things that, like Dr. Abby had mentioned.
Sure. It's a great point on personalizing. And I think it all goes back to that, right? You cannot do what necessarily is going to work for you is what your best friend's doing, or even maybe what your provider suggests, right? It has to be personalized. It has to, number one, fit with you and your family schedule. It has to be achievable, right? It may not be everything, but it has to feel and be doable for you. And so I think that's the number one thing with personalizing something. And yes, there's so many things. There's the protein and weightlifting and hydrate, and they're all excellent and great. And I think the majority of women need to be doing those. But I think especially if you're just starting, right, we want to think about the basics the foundations, right? Sleep, nutrition, movement, sunlight, outside time. Are you fueling your body? Are you moving your body? Are you outside? Are you in an office all day? Maybe that first step is, I need to take a 5-minute break in the morning and get some morning sunlight. That can do wonders. So I think it's focusing on the basics. And I always tell patients, especially women, start small, right? I mean, there's some personalities that come in and they're like, I'm going to do all of these things. I want to do all 30 things. I'm in this. I love when people, it's like, I'm an all or nothing person. Okay, that's great. But a lot of us aren't. And sometimes that can lead to maybe not the best and easiest results, right? So I always say, especially for women that are in these seasons of the 30s, 40s, 50s, start small. And that could be, hey, you know what? I know that I'm not drinking enough water. Okay, let's start there. For the next 2 weeks, try to work on like doubling your water intake. Doesn't mean you have to double it tomorrow, right? It could be 10 more ounces tomorrow. I know I never get outside. Okay, we need to work on that. Let's try for the next 2 weeks, getting outside for a few minutes in the morning and then the evening before it gets dark. So I think it's starting small. You have to, as well, I think part of the personalization is being open to adjustments. What works in one season may not work in the next. What worked with one child is possibly not going to work with the other child. So we have to be flexible. And believe me, I like structure. I'm a person of structure. But we have to be adaptable, right? So we have to you have to have that open dialogue with yourself and with potentially the coach or provider that you're working with. Hey, this really isn't working for me. And this is why. And then it's going back to the drawing board and figuring out what will potentially work. And don't ever feel like, there's a failure piece to this, because they're not. If you're there and you're trying and, you're open to change, like that's half of it right there. You're halfway there. And I think one of the most important pieces, Cindy, that gets lost is your wellness routine should fill your cup somewhat and bring you some sort of joy. If not, then it needs to be adjusted, right? And that can be on the physical front, that can be on the spiritual front, that can be on the nutrition front. Yes, are you going to want to go to the gym, 3 days a week? Maybe not every week, right? And like there's pieces like that we push through sometimes for the longer term benefit. But if you're absolutely not wanting to do that specific workout routine, or you're absolutely despise eating that food, let's regroup. Because it needs to be enjoyable somewhat and fill you up.
Oh my gosh, that was so helpful. Thank you very much. Kate, what do you wish more women understood about the body's changes as we move beyond the early parenting years? There is a lot of changes that happen. Society doesn't tell you that these changes are going to happen. And so women are often shocked. They get insecure. They, like Nikki said, they think that what happened and what they were doing before is going to work with them for the long haul. And then it doesn't. And then you're just lost and you have no idea what to do, where to start. So what do you think? How about those body changes? A huge shout out to our Patreon subscribers. Your support truly means the world to us. Thanks to you, we are able to continue the weekly production of Mama Needs a Moment and getting this valuable information from these incredible guests out to you, our listeners. This final question has been recorded as a bonus and is available for our Patreon subscribers to go listen to right now. Be sure to log into your Patreon account and have a listen. If you're not a subscriber, we'd love to have you. The link is in the show notes. It's a very important topic to talk to moms about the holistic solutions for common mom ailments. And we really are grateful for your time today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
That's a wrap. You carved out a few moments just for yourself, and that's a big deal.
We understand that time is limited, but we've got your back, which is why we keep these episodes short, sweet, and packed with goodness.
Don't miss a thing. Hit the follow button so you're always the first to know when a new episode drops. If you had as much fun as we did, let us know by leaving a review.
And remember to let other moms know that we're here doing motherhood alongside you. Grateful to share a few moments taking care of you.